The resurrection of love. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Matthew 28:10. Newly Revised Standard Version. I will take the 10th verse from the Gospel of Matthew as the theme for my lecture. The entire modern and cultured Christian world celebrates Easter, but this year, by mere chance, there are two Easters. One of the Easters is called the Great Day of the Rich, whereas the other one belongs to the poor. I don't know why the rich people need to have a great day. And if they were to ask me why the rich have a great day, I would say that it exists so the Lord can free them from their wealth, because money is the greatest evil for the rich. And so, the rich person needs to celebrate Easter in order to free himself of his wealth. If he's fat, to have his belly reduce in size. If his heart is fat, to have some of his fat wither away. If you don't believe this, ask the doctors. They'll tell you the influence that fat has on the vital organs within the organism. If they ask me why the poor celebrate, it's so they can feed themselves. They're hungry. It's always for the sake of this food. But there are overlapping points of contact in the food. The rich seek salvation, but Christ is free from these old ideas that mankind still holds from the time of their bondage. The poor, who also want to celebrate Easter, also want salvation. From what? From their material bondage. Now, in order for you to understand these two Easters, these great days, you must live among both the rich and the poor. The greatest art is in knowing how to live with a rich person and knowing how to live with an impoverished person. We don't need to consider the question of how Christ was resurrected. We don't care about graves. What is important is the main idea that is embedded. Whether Christ was crucified or whether he was in his tomb, we're not concerned with that. A young man who wants to marry is not so interested in where the young woman was born. The young woman herself is the vital question for him. The house is something secondary. However, in the cultured world of today, they give more priority to houses and cemeteries than living people. This has its own economic principles, its own economic considerations, the poor people say. Why do they serve Christ today? Because he gives them money, bread, and wheat. Of course. But let Christ withdraw his allowance to the priestly budget so you can see how there won't be any preaching. Even if he reduces the bread a little, the people won't gather in churches. Even the poor who have some ideals, they too always revolve around eating. What unites all people are the ideas regarding bread. The fact that Christ came from heaven, that he was born, that he resurrected. These are all secondary things. However, some people say they're looking for Christ. Others say they're not. This is idle talk, which is to say, even if it's true, it's still a lie. Now some might say that my words are too strong, but circle around the modern day world and you'll find this naked truth everywhere. I don't criticize, but I'm merely stating a fact. When I observe a wound, I say that this wound has a depth of 2 centimeters and a width of 10 centimeters. If you don't believe, check for yourselves. Why did Christ come to earth? What is his main idea? The idea that can resolve all issues, both mental ones and heart-related, as well as social ones, is the law of love that is alive. And what, namely, does this living love consist of? in knowing that every person in the world feels and suffers like you, and that he has the same needs as you do. Consequently, you must be able to completely assume this condition, just as you would for yourself. And you need to be ready to help him, just as you would do the same for yourself. This is philosophy. This is the science that is going to be applied in the future. Yet what do we have right now? People meet and say, "Christ is risen." Do you know what it means? When a guest comes to you from outside, you say, "I'm happy you're here." He stays 1 or 2 days. You start asking him, "How long are you going to stay? How are you going to get back?" This is what is important. How long you're going to stay. If it's for 2 or 3 days, you are welcome. But if it happens to be for any longer, so that's the point we reached. Our brotherhood lasts for 2 or 3 days. It doesn't matter how things go for 2 or 3 days, but if a friend stays 1 or 2 days longer, the friendship is over. The word Jesus is symbolic, as it contains 3 great fundamental principles. One of the principles represents a power that creates, that transforms life, that gives a new direction. Jesus is not a person who deals with old wives' tales. He deals with a number of great divine truths that put everything in order. The second principle is that the living energy doesn't prick anybody with needles like we do when we study little bugs and butterflies. This living energy puts everything in order. It gives life to everything. It doesn't kill anybody. That is, it is a preserving force, or as they call it, the law of love. The third principle is the law of equilibrium, the law that equalizes all disputes that arise between people. Disputes are natural. I won't stop to explain why disputes arise. You know them. In a small town in Bulgaria, they built a bathhouse. The citizens divided into 2 parties over what they should make the bath with. One party said that the floorboards should be smooth and sanded, while the other party said that they shouldn't be sanded, so they wouldn't slip and fall. And for the last 8,000 years, people have been arguing about what kind of planks should be used to cover the bathrooms. Finally, they sent a state inspector to settle this dispute, and he decided that the bath should be made with 1 sanded floorboard next to an unsanded one. So whoever's in favor of sanded planks would be satisfied, and whoever is in favor of unsanded planks would also be satisfied. If you ask me how your bathroom will be, I will say, whoever stands for the sanded planks will walk on his plank, and whoever supports the unsanded ones will walk on his own plank, as long as there is peace. The person who contains these 3 principles says, "Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." People say, "Do not be afraid." What is the cause of fear? It's infidelity. Our mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters have been unfaithful for thousands of years, and now they don't trust anybody. Someone says, "You're saying something, but is this correct? Will you return the money back?" And so fear arose out of people's unfaithfulness. Then the cure for fear is love. Fear is the greatest disease that modern-day people have. It is a trap, a weakness for the human character, and 99% of crimes are due to fear. Consequently, every one of you who wants to be a hero in his heart mustn't have absolutely any fear. Your heart must be full of love, but not love made out of potatoes or millet. There was a time when the barley, wheat, rye, oats, and corn went to war in order to free the world from the same bondage. They found the millet to be the smallest and said to it, "In our absence, we will leave you to feed the world, and then when we win, each one will assume his position." Then the millet asked, "Tell me, please, can I let the people make banitsa out of me?" They said to the millet, "You should be good for bread, but don't bother with the layers of dough used in banitsa." The people of today talk about culture, about thinly spread layers of dough. Some person is not even worthy of being a loaf of bread, but wants to become a thinly spread layer of dough. This person hasn't even straightened out his own life, yet he's thinking about heaven, what the thinly spread layers of dough will be like. First and foremost, you should straighten out your own life. Now Christ says, "Do not be afraid. I bring a new element of love." For whom? For his brothers, and not for outsiders. Today I also speak to my brothers, and not for outsiders. Those who recognize the brotherhood are people of the new culture. Those who don't recognize it are people of the old culture. If you want to find your name somewhere, written in large letters, you'll find it in the bedroll of the old culture. The name of some count is written there, some prince, bishop, minister, preacher, and others. However, you can't find the person himself over there. Someone says, "I'm a teacher." What do you teach? "I teach mathematics." How do you teach? How? Well, we have 10 main numbers, from 1 to 10. All the mathematics is in the 10 main numbers. We make various combinations. Like the merchants, we divide, we add, we make square roots. But there's a difference between one way of subtracting and another. If you subtract one tooth from a person's mouth, and you subtract one plant with its roots and plant it in another place, these are two different things. How do we subtract? With a pair of pliers. But you can also subtract with a pickaxe. Consequently, I refer to the mathematics that people study as an introduction to mathematics. I say, there is a difference between the current science and the one that is going to come in the future. According to some astronomers, matter was originally dormant. When it awoke, it began to rotate and formed living circles and spheres. Today, they study these circles and spheres without mentioning anything about the intelligent cause that formed them. The movement that takes place in the universe is due to that intelligent spirit that regulates and governs all forces. This is the only movement that is real, which alone makes the world real. According to the philosophers, there are two real things in the world: substance, the visible form of bodies, and essence, the invisible, the elusive, which lies in these forms. People study mainly the form of things. They have not yet reached the essence. And so, when we speak of brotherhood and sisterhood, we mean the substance of things manifested in two beautiful forms. There are no forms in the physical world that are more beautiful than these. Whoever wants to become beautiful like an angel must develop in himself the feeling of a brother and a sister. This is a law. I still don't see brotherhood and sisterhood on your faces. Do you know the face of a brother and a sister? There are no thorns in the area where the brother and sister live. There are no gaps in the area where the brother and sister live. In the words which the brother and sister use, There is only one form, only one content, the idea, and only one sense or one meaning. In brotherhood and sisterhood, words don't need to be proven. They are strictly defined mathematical quantities. What do people do in the world? They argue. If they are religious, they argue about who is a true Christian. When a new person comes among them, they put him to the test to see if he can endure. How can they tell if he's ready and can endure? According to the evangelists, he first weeps, he repents for his sins, and then he says he is willing to sacrifice himself for the good of mankind. Once he goes through these phases, they accept him as a member of their church. The members from the Orthodox Church, however, say they are born Orthodox. Whatever his father, so is he. This is closer to the truth. The duck gives birth to ducklings. The member of the Orthodox Church must believe in the church, in the bishops, in the Gospels, in the ecumenical councils, among other things. Things are not going well for the members of the Orthodox Church. I don't reproach them, nor do I ridicule them. In the brotherhood, there is no division into ours and yours. Everyone is ours. In the brotherhood, there are no widows. In whichever nation there happen to be widows, one cannot speak of brotherhood there. And in any church where they speak of widows, there is no brotherhood or sisterhood there. What are the causes of widowhood? It is caused by killings. The men go to war, where they're killed. There was a time when the men were widows. Why? Because back then the women went to war. So, when the men go to war, there are widows. When the women go to war, there are widows. There are no brothers and sisters in these societies. This is from the viewpoint of Christian culture. In true Christianity, there is no remembrance of the dead. Everyone is a saint in relation to the earth, and brothers and sisters in relation to heaven. People have turned the world upside down and wonder why their affairs aren't going as planned. They put the saints in heaven where they're not needed, and the brothers and sisters on earth. The brothers and sisters should be up there so they can pull people out of the well. The saints should be on earth so they can shine light on the people and show them the way. Where are the Bulgarian saints? I don't want dead saints. They should be alive, carrying their lit torches. Now they want to convince me that there are saints on earth. What are the saints known by? They live according to the law of divine love. Christ says, "Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Galilee is the place where we can understand these things with our mind. We have to be highly noble, highly intelligent, and not like the wolf who brings the lamb to his little pup. No, we have to be highly noble and intelligent for everyone. Now some people might reprimand me, but I listen to the animals. I ask them what opinion they have of you. I meet some chicken. I ask her, "Are modern-day Christians true Christians?" No, because they gather together as a group, and they slaughter us. They take our eggs. I ask them if this is a fact. Yes, come and see the commotion in the chicken coops. I meet some oxen and ask them, "How are your people? Are they Christians?" There is no memory of their Christianity. When they harness us, they make us work for 12 whole hours, and they give us a little hay from time to time. And when we get old, they skin our hide. This is not Christianity. This is bondage. If you read chapter 66 from Isaiah, you will see that 3,000 years ago, he said that whoever slaughters an ox stands before God, just like the person who kills a man. This man from 3,000 years ago had higher morals than the people of today. They say, Christ is risen. Yes, but he has not yet risen for your oxen and chickens. You cannot enter the kingdom of God until he rises for your oxen and chickens. I take the words oxen and chickens in a figurative sense, and I'm right. I thereby set a new morality in life. 2,000 years ago, Christ said this, to love your neighbors as yourself. They only took one part of the verse. Christ meant to love all the bugs, from the smallest to the greatest, as yourself, because there are some bugs that the people created. A few students from an American university collected parts of different bugs, assembled them, and formed them into a new kind of bug. They took it to their professor and asked him, Professor, we found a new type of bug. We don't know which class to put it in. The professor examined it and said to them, Boys, this is a humbug. It's your own creation. This professor couldn't be deceived. We do the same. We made many of these humbugs and say the Lord created them. These are our own inventions. Can you get into the position of every bug in order to understand how it lives? Let me explain to you the difference between the small animals and yourselves. They differ only in what they have completed. Whoever completes a greater task, we think he has done his duty, that he's more intelligent. The person who didn't complete something means he's less intelligent. You say, They're stupid now. I ask, how many thousands of years ago did the spider learn to make his web? Do you know for how many years this culture represented a higher, more developed culture? Only a thin web currently remains from that culture. And the spider says, This is our culture. We are capable of making a thin web. The spider found the most efficient method for spinning one of these threads with the least amount of resources. I ask, Where's our thread? The spider already has a thread that he can present at the exhibition. But what will we modern-day cultured people send to the exhibition? Why don't you tell me what the Bulgarian Christians would send to the exhibition? We still don't have anything to send. I would be very grateful if you could show me what this invention is, which you could send to heaven, so you could draw the attention of those highly cultured people there. Present-day people argue over who has proven himself the most in the world. I will liken this to a story. In prehistoric times, there lived a poor man somewhere in Asia who was the most noble person in the whole world. When the Lord took a liking to the life of this poor man, he sent 2 angels so they could put a laurel wreath on his head. What comprised his holiness? This poor man spent his whole life before the roots of a tree in tears and prayers. Why did he have to stand there and weep? I will tell you the longer story of this tree. Sometime before the appearance of people on earth, back during the age of the angels and archangels, when their culture was still developing, the Lord sent one of the military rulers to earth to help. However, when he came, he met a beautiful woman, married her, and forgot his task. For this reason, the Lord turned him into a beech tree, and his head was stuck in the ground for thousands of years in order to learn. And the poor saintly man then had to spend his whole life before the roots of this tree, weeping and covering it with his tears, so he could save the military ruler. When the Lord saw the efforts of this weak man, he sent angels to bring him a laurel wreath. However, when they brought the wreath, They saw a pretty young woman and began arguing over who to give the wreath to the young woman or the poor man. They tore the wreath and put half of it on the young woman and the other half on the poor man, on the saint. Now this wreath, which represents love, is torn. Things aren't going as they should. Who truly deserves the wreath? Is it the young woman or the man who weeps before the tree and lifts up the people? Consequently, all of you must work like the man who wept, so the Lord could turn back the minds and hearts of the people. Now these people, who are much wiser, have come to earth and have sinned, and this heretic must pray and cry for them to be raised up. They use the prayers of Saint Basil in the church to curse the evil spirits. And after such a long time, these people stand much lower than their church-related beliefs. Now 2 other angels are coming down from heaven, and they're carrying a laurel wreath again. But since the church is the bride of Christ, they want to cause the same division again. Everyone wants to tear up the wreath, to take half of it again, but this time they won't succeed. Now everyone asks, to which church does the wreath belong? It doesn't belong to any church. The only person who deserves the wreath is Christ. He is alive, and he is now living on earth, but you cannot recognize him. To have seen Christ means to have come out of his love, to give every one of his smaller brothers the right to develop properly. Whomever this love meets, it asks him, are you building something? Thus stands the new law, which is the only law, the law of love. It includes only one rule, the rule of truth, not to lie. Only one path, the path of wisdom. Only one good, which is the good fruit of virtue. Only one right, which is God's righteousness. Now you are standing and digging at me, whether I speak the truth, what I am, and so on. There is no need to dig into me. When you dig, you also dig yourselves up. I told many people that when they dig into me, they look for me in this body. I am not here. I appear to be here, but one day I will disappear. I will disguise myself, and then when you see me, you won't recognize me. Where is Mr. Deunov? You won't recognize him. The same happened with Christ. You will say, do you also know what will happen in Jerusalem? We can throw away the white hairs along with this form. All this is external. We don't think about the world the way you think about it. I consider all the forms that God created as holy. To me, an ox is as important as a person. To me, a bird is as important as a professor. You will say, that's saying a lot. The divine spirit works in every individual, and every person who stumbles this individual also stumbles the work of the divine spirit. You will stop before a tree and look upon it with favor. You shouldn't break its branches. That would be immoral. As long as people continue to slaughter cattle, as long as they continue to make wars, there can be no love in the world, and therefore there can be no peace. According to this teaching, it doesn't matter who will govern. Let the rich govern, but as long as they don't kill, as long as they don't imprison. Let the poor govern, as long as they don't kill, as long as they don't imprison. Everyone must apply the law of love. This is required for any system. This is important, not only for the present system, but also for our souls. I preach this teaching for the sake of your homes as well. Some woman is dissatisfied with her husband. She goes out. She meets another woman. She complains. They believe he's not a good man. She hasn't recognized her husband. Some husband complains about his wife and is dissatisfied with her. He doesn't know his wife. He has not yet unfurled the folds to see what wellspring will gush from her heart. But now you have clogged your heart with wool. When you love, you should not ask for anything. The law of love is such that he who asks for things does not love. Now you say, I love you very much. Lend me money. Whoever wants something, I will give. I will tell him, Brother, what do you want? This and that. I'm willing to oblige. And Christ said, Go, tell my brothers who are ready to apply my teaching on earth to go to Galilee. Christ doesn't say to go to heaven, but on earth. If we can't live in love here on earth, how would we live up there? Do you think that the people who reached such perfection will let us go there? They will tell us, You can pass by as visitors, but how many days will you stay? And then they return us back again. And now the greatest art for all of us is to know how to love. The other day a friend came to me, telling me that his sister was ill. I said to him, Let her apply the law of love. If she can love, she will be cured. Feel her hand to see if it grew a little. If it grew a little, it means she has love. All of you must try this for yourselves. If there is an expansion by at least 1 millimeter, you should say, Brother, my love grew by 1 millimeter. There must always be at least a little expansion in your organism. If there is no expansion in your organism, there is no love in you at all. And Christ doesn't speak to such people because they are asleep. And so, I now want all of you to become brothers and sisters. But you must be sincere. You must say what is in your hearts. I will recount an anecdote to you. The President of the United States invited 2 Indians to lunch in Washington one day. Among some of the dishes, he put some mustard on the table. One of the young Indians put some mustard on his bread. But when he ate, tears started flowing down his face. The older one asked him, Why are you crying? It occurred to me that my father drowned in the lake of Jiran. A little later, the older Indian ate some mustard, and his eyes teared up too. Why are you crying? The other Indian asked him. Because you didn't drown along with your father last year. All the present-day Christians talk about their sufferings, but not about the causes of their sufferings. The mustard is not guilty, but the fact that the father drowned. And what is the mustard? It represents the present-day crimes that occur in the world. And Christ says, Go to Galilee, there you will see me. See what? Love. Love can be seen. It can be realized. When you see love, when you see Christ, you will no longer be called by the names you have now. The resurrection is coming now. In earlier times, it was Christ who was resurrected, but now it's time for his disciples. The current issue is who is resurrected and who is not. This resurrection must come for everyone. Some people come and try to convince me that they have risen. I ask, have you seen love? Are you ready to sacrifice yourselves for everyone? Some woman says, I left my husband. Well, those who have not yet risen leave their husbands. The husband says, I left my wife. A resurrected person doesn't leave anyone, but he comes to his beloved. He will come to the soul of his beloved, and he will say the truth. When they say one word to each other, they'll understand each other. This is the great love, to speak to each other according to God's way, to say the truth to each other. But now the woman says, My dear, this and that. But behind this talk, she's really saying, I hope he's not sitting around at home. And he answers with the same sincerity. These are the two Hindu heroes who cry, but they don't say why. The woman says, I'm very unhappy. I had an unhappy marriage. The husband says the same. That's not where the cause is. The cause behind it is that you commit sins. I'm unhappy. I gave birth to a lot of children, says the woman. That's not the cause. And so this living God has come down on earth, and he's knocking on your doors. He wakes you up every night. He knocks every evening. You don't know the Lord. Someone lost his wealth and suffers. The Lord takes his wealth and says, let's see if he will recognize me. Some bishop became old, and they fire him. He suffers. Nobody recognizes Christ. And yet they pass for believers. They know about all the holy canons and which saint to canonize. It's not their right to canonize the saint. The Lord knows what is righteous. The Lord knows who loves. There is also another law. Man cannot beget man. When you multiply 2 times 2, you'll get 4. The number 4 cannot produce 4 by itself. It cannot produce itself. It will produce another number. Consequently, we say, I want to love. No, you can't love. Scripture says to love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Consequently, when you perceive this great love for God, then you'll also perceive it for your neighbor. If you don't love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, from where will you get the love? You can't get love from the marketplace. And so, in the future, when you get married, you must ask your beloved, my dear, do you love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength? If the Lord is in you, I will unite with you. When these two unite, they will form another number with their children. There is no reason to ask whether I love myself. When you light a stove, there is no reason to say the stove is warm. It alone will give off its own heat. But now someone says, you should know that I'm kind of a strange person. What makes you strange? Yes, I understand your coin purse is bigger. You take more. In the neighboring home, they started playing bagpipes and zurnas. The master said, let them play a little music. We're talking about love. We'll be patient. They have not yet learned the art of playing, and they don't have love within. It's not with them. Because their zurnas make too many hissing noises. Their love is like those zurnas. All of you, both young and old alike, must apply love, so this living Christ can come to live, not just in heaven, but also in your souls, hearts, minds, and your will, and you must apply this teaching in practice. Enough of this babbling. Nobody should criticize anyone else. Do not criticize your brother. Now, I'm not going to tell you Christ is risen. I will ask you, did love enter your hearts? Have you come to love it? Did love enter your souls? Did love enter your minds and will? If love entered into your hearts, souls, minds, and will, everyone in whom it entered, I say, Christ is risen and love is risen. You can make this your reality. Don't wait for the time. Don't wait for evolution to catch up. Don't wait for love to come from outside, but it should live from within, and then you'll be beautiful. When we learn to love, we will no longer grow old, but will be young, 33 years old. When we grow old, we'll remove our old skins. We'll constantly rejuvenate ourselves, and we'll live as long as we want. This is the new teaching. To be young when it comes to love. The person who loves is young. Once he stops loving, he's old. If he loves, he's healthy. If he stops loving, he's sick. If he loves, he's a scholar. Once he stops loving, the knowledge disappears. This is how this science is. Anyone can try it. Now Christ says, "Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." If you ask where Galilee is, you're not meant to be there. You have to know where Galilee is. And so, now the resurrection of love is coming. We will no longer say Christ is risen, but we'll say, "May love rise and disperse the enemies who now hate us." Apply the current teaching like this. Lord, may your will be done, but may it become ours. Lord, may your love be done, but may it become ours. I would say like this. Lord, may our will be done, but may it become yours. Lord, may our love be done, but may it become yours. These are the maxims that a person can apply. When a person has love within, there is no force that can oppose him. He will have a new understanding. There won't be misfortune in his home, but there will be peace. His daughters will be married on time. You won't have to drag the sons-in-law by force. If you have love, you will have no loss. If you have love, there will be scholars everywhere. Love is now coming into the world. A great current is coming to the world. Whoever is not a hero shouldn't walk along the shores, because he'll be carried away. He'll be swept away. The scripture says, the wrath of God is coming. What time period is this referring to? It's a time for those who have no love. This teaching is for today, for today's culture, and now the sufferings are much more difficult than those during the time of Christ. These social misunderstandings can only be solved through love. It will come as a real form. It will sweep away everything. And so, those who are ready will be resurrected, but those who are not ready will turn into water. This is how you say it in your language. They will die, and they'll turn into bones. Whoever knows love, this law will have no power over him. I would like all of you to be united with Christ today. You always expect him in the future, but you should meet him today. And look at how difficult it is for you to understand this great truth, to meet with Christ. Sometimes there is a difference between one time that you met him and another. Sometimes the lover meets his beloved and says, "She's not herself today," and he doesn't recognize her. She feels indisposed. When you meet Christ, you will change your disposition. You will be heroes. There will be no difficulties for you. There will be no hatred. And once this is gone, Christ will come. Now start making experimental attempts with love. Start taking measurements. Only in this way will true evil be eradicated. And this will have to start in your homes, among women and children, in the church. If we apply it, there will be peace. If not, there will be sufferings. Then both young and old will continue crying over the lake of Jiran. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me. These are Christ's last words to you. To go to Galilee, to see him, to come to know the love that he brings into the world. He is coming now to resurrect them. This is now the last day. I would like all of you to be resurrected. I now see that some stones on the tombs are starting to shake, and Christ is coming. He is coming. He will pull open the stones, and many are coming with him. He will then say, "Lazarus, come out." And I also greet you with Christ's resurrection. May you go to Galilee to meet Christ and to have him tell you the new password for the new life of love. Lecture held on the 1st of May, 1921, Easter.